confidence is not a fluke. Confidence is a choice, and it begins with your mindset. In this podcast, you will get all sorts of mindset tools to help you reduce self criticism and overwhelm while increasing your empowerment and courage. I am passionate about helping women decrease their mental drama and increase their self awareness while leaving behind all the perfectionist tendencies. We do so by empowering ourselves one episode at a time. I am Olga, your host, former therapist, life coach, blissfully an IVF mother, and this is the Journey to Happy podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Journey to Happy podcast. I'm Olga, and as always, I'm here to share with you some of my thoughts for this week. And I hope today's episode speaks a lot to you. It's all about productivity, and I want to give you some of my thoughts about what productivity can really look like. And I'm going to break it down for you as I normally do in these episodes, and then just hopefully leave you with something to think about and implement. I wanted to start the episode with a massive thank you to all of you. I'm celebrating that the podcast has reached 75,000 plus 75,000 downloads at the time of this recording. And that's a celebration for me because more people listening means I'm helping more people. And that just makes me really, really happy. So thank you for checking in. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Thank you for sharing the podcast with your friends and families and anybody who you think should be listening to it. I appreciate it. You're helping me help more people. Okay, before we dive in, I want you to know that a few exciting opportunities to work with me for a day, for an hour, are coming up. And I'm only going to be letting people know inside my email list. So if you're not in my email list, get your butt over there, head over to the show notes, click in the link that says sign up for the newsletter and stay tuned for two great opportunities that are coming up only for my email list subscribers. On that note, let's just dive into a subject that I recently sent as an email out to my list subscribers in my newsletter. And this is the 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule will make sense in a moment. Okay. So I was coaching inside Reset Your Mindset, and one of my clients said out loud her newly discovered thought. Okay. So not every moment has to be productive. And what I like to offer is that for my client, she's a type A. She likes to do things. She likes to achieve things. She likes to feel on top of her game at all times. So she used to think that every moment must be a moment to produce, to do something that at the end of the day, there was something she could show for her time. In other words, and I know she's not alone, many of us think the same way, productivity equals results that we can show. So when you're thinking of what did you do on a Sunday and you're like, oh my God, I have nothing to show. Some of you might have the thought that says, oh, it was a lazy Sunday. I didn't do anything of value, nothing that I can show. Or some of us find ourselves in our 40s and we look back and we don't see a lot of money in the bank, or we don't see a book written, or we don't see like a large family created. And we think to ourselves, my God, what have I done in 40 years or 40 plus years? I have nothing to show for. And so we feel disappointed because we have this perception that productivity is all about having something that we can show, a result that we can show. So here is the thought that I offered to my client that I'm offering to you. Not every productive moment has to be visible in a form of results, tangible results that you can see, that you can touch. So it's true. I believe that not every moment has to be productive if what you understand as productivity is doing. But also, I want you to think about not every productive moment having to deal with visible results, tangible, touchable results. I like to offer that productivity is a byproduct of our ability to think with clarity. Productivity is a byproduct, I'm going to repeat that, of our ability to think with clarity. It's also the output of energy that we have internally. So if you want to know how much energy you have inside, look at how productive you feel you are in a day. And it's also how we see in the outside world how much or how little we cultivate the key elements that feed our productivity. So to me, productivity on its own, it's a result that shows a lot of internal work. Okay. And whether or not you cultivate the elements of productivity. And for the purpose of this podcast, I broke them down for you. What are the elements of productivity? So when I think of somebody who's very productive, when I think of myself, when I judge a day as, my God, I was super productive today, or this week I was really productive, here's what I've realized I have done. I have done four things. I definitely had mental clarity. I was organized. I was able to prioritize and I took action. So to me, productivity is the byproduct of having cultivated four elements: mental clarity, organization, prioritizing, and action taking. So now, for the purpose of this podcast, because I love you, I broke down what builds or what nourishes or what cultivates each of these four elements. So let's start with mental clarity. A lot of my clients come to me saying, I don't have mental clarity. I'm like in a daze. I don't really know who I am, what I want anymore, what brings me joy, what doesn't. I don't even know my voice. All I can hear is everybody else's opinions. So normally, when you work with me, one of the first elements that we incorporate into the Reset Your Mindset program is the creation of awareness. And I do that very intentionally because I want all of my clients to have mental clarity. And how do we cultivate mental clarity? If you're really feeling like you're not very clear in your mind, you don't have a lot of mental clarity, you have a hard time making decisions, overall, you're feeling like your brain is not all there, it's foggy. Here's what you probably need to focus on: sleeping. Mental clarity is gained by a body that is rested, a mind that is disconnected from the doing, that's able to just unplug. And so sleeping will be one of the things that I want to cultivate to gain mental clarity. Also, good nourishment of the body, and specifically your organs, and the biggest organ being the brain. So, how do we nourish the brain and the body on a regular basis? Notice I say the word nourishment because it might look very different for every single one of us. Lately, to nourish my body, I've been eating a lot of fermented foods. Not my favorite ones, but I've noticed they have incredible impact in nourishing my body. I digest better, the bloatiness goes away. Like there is something about fermented foods that really suits my body. So I apply that as a nourishment rule. Or going for walks, or even just sitting to breathe. Literally have a moment to sit down, close my eyes, and breathe. And I'm enjoying it so much because I feel rested. And when I feel rested and my actual body is rested, my brain is rested, I've got mental clarity. So you might be thinking, why do I talk about nourishment of the body and the brain to create mental clarity? Mental clarity is a byproduct of a body and a brain that got what they need. Their needs are met. So you have vital energy to think clearly. Now, I have focused so much on my existence, finding out what foods best suit my body. And I am here to say I don't follow a diet. I am not in any particular train of eating, except for the one that says, oh, Olga's body can digest this and actually feels light and good after eating this type of foods, paying attention to that, and then eating more of those foods, like most of the time. I talk about the brain because the brain is the largest organ and therefore it takes the most out of your food. And if we're eating foods that do not nourish our particular body, the brain is going to borrow energy from other organs in order to function. So that's when you start having like more fatigue, like you're not digesting anymore as well, because the brain is trying to borrow energy from the other organs because there's not enough nourishment coming into the body to give plenty to all of your organs. So this is a call of awareness to you all to notice how much sleep you're getting, how good or how bad the food you're currently eating impacts your brain and your body and your functioning? Is it nourishing? Like if you had to say, I feel nourished by my body. If the answer is an automatic yes, become curious. I wonder what foods make me feel better. Not what everyone's eating. I've always said this before. They call quinoa a superfood. Same with like all the vegan proteins are pea based. Both of those foods kill my system. They're not nourishing to my system. So becoming aware of that was important. Because while the majority of people are successful eating and nourishing their bodies with these two superfoods, not me. And that's okay. Hey, Olga here. Did you know that research shows that the most effective way to change and gain control over your stubborn negative thoughts is through the practice of mindfulness and meditation? This is exciting because never before did we have concrete evidence of research showing this. So, who knew that our breath was really the answer to it all? So, as a certified mindfulness teacher myself, I figured I could help you improve your practice of mindfulness by teaching you the basics. So, if you're interested in getting the manual that I created, you can head over to the show notes and download it immediately. And by doing so, you're also going to get 2 or 3 extra bonuses of meditations that I have recorded myself. So let's get you started with that practice of mindfulness, and I'll see you guys soon. Enjoy. Resting is about being present, not distracted. And if you are going to sit on the couch, sitting with yourself, listening to the music, to the sounds around you, just becoming aware that you're sitting on the couch and that's what you're doing. Maybe it's about driving. And when you're driving, that's what you're doing. You're fully aware. I am driving. While I was driving yesterday on one normally busy road, I noticed one lane was super slow and the other one was fast. And I was on the very slow lane. And I wonder, what is it that is happening that I can't see? What's blocking this side? And why is nobody going onto the other side? So I went onto the other lane that was fast. And I noticed every single car that I passed, the driver was on their phone. They were not even aware that they were slowing down traffic, nor did they care because that was the speed that they needed to go to be able to also read their phones. Just terrifying, the level of distraction we are driving with, or just going about life. Another way of cultivating mental clarity is through meditation, sitting down with your breath, being in the present moment, really gaining mental space. And lastly, my other very, very amazing, it's not amazing for everybody. It is so beneficial to me that I definitely get a lot of my clients to experiment with it. Journaling, just writing down all my thoughts, my observations, becoming really aware of the kind of and quality of thoughts I'm having allows for mental clarity. It allows me to just empty the real estate of my brain and then just putting it out in paper so that I can fully and truly focus on the moment. Okay, so that is how we cultivate mental clarity. Let's jump into element number 2, organization. I've always said that I'm not an organized person. And I always think that I said that I'm not an organized person because I lack mental clarity. So I do think these elements complement each other. I'm at most organized when I have mental clarity because it's easier to think of systems to organize. So I do think that organization is made easier by having a rested mind. So being able to avoid feeling overwhelmed by seeing sort of like the big picture of all the things we want to do or have to do. And we do that by creating or having that mental calmness that allow us to break down into segments the things that we have to do. And that breaking of segments is what I think is organizing. So when you want to be really productive at work, sometimes we think of the bigger picture and all the things that will have to happen for the big picture to occur. And we just jump into overwhelmed because we were not mentally clear to begin with, not very rested. So being able to organize, it's our ability to just break down what we have to do into segments. So there's step 1, there's step 2, there's step 3, and not falling for, oh, there's 100 steps. I'm feeling overwhelmed by that. But simply just noticing, yeah, it doesn't matter how many steps, so long as I know the path to go there. So I've noticed that in order to cultivate organization myself, I absolutely have to go back to number one and have that mental clarity and have that restlessness. Restlessness? Did I just make up a word? Being rested. But then for me, organizing is all about being patient and calm and creating the time to break down what I've got to do to be productive into segments and steps, like if this was a system. So let's say that what you have to do for work on a regular basis is record a podcast. What are the steps that I normally unconsciously follow to record a podcast? How can I create a system of this? How will it work better? Just having that thought of something that you do on a regular basis broke down into segments, it makes it so much easier to do it again and again and again. And organization is simply a system that allows you to do the same task over and over with a system in mind. Then we're going to go into number three, element number three, which is prioritizing. If you have not heard my episode on out of overwhelm, do yourself a favor, listen to that next. Prioritizing is actually committing to getting it all done, but one priority at a time. When the mind is rested, no longer sees everything as a priority. When the mind is not organized and there is no mental clarity and you're not rested, everything seems equally urgent. But reality is only one thing is a priority at any given point. So if my one task right now is to record the podcast because it airs today, but I also have to email my boss and I also have to finish a report and I also have to prepare for a talk that I'm giving in 2 days. If you're not rested, if you're not organized, they might all seem to feel like I have to do them all today or else. And I want to offer that prioritizing is really that ability to commit to getting one thing done at a time. So, what is the one thing that I have to do today? Well, I just said the podcast airs today, so I've got to record that one first, if that was the case. So, you can only do that with ease. I mean, you can still prioritize when you are not organized and you have no mental clarity. Many of us just do it on the fly. Okay, I'm going to have to prioritize now. The experience is not pleasant. And so, this 80/20 rule that I'm about to teach, I'll get to it, I promise. It's all about noticing that we got to do things in balance. And then buying ourselves time to plan and do the things makes it so much easier. The last element is action taking. Many of my clients are great with creating the mental clarity, they organize, they prioritize, and then fear takes them and they don't get it done, or they just jump into 100% of the doing. So taking action is a lot easier and less resisting. Do you find a lot less resistance within yourself to move into that action if you are doing it from a place of internal space? Because if you have internal space, if there is internal capacity to take on action that could be uncomfortable and stressful, you are going to have very little barriers from yourself to take action. So, once again, the mind that is clear because it's gained sleep, is nourished, is rested, is clear on what the goals are and why they're important, is got a system of organization, how we're going to get to the goal, how we're going to be productive today. How do we define as production today? We're going to prioritize what needs to happen. Then the action taking, it's common sense. You just naturally move into that action taking, but from a place of even if it gets uncomfortable, even if I don't know how this is going to play out, I've got internal room or capacity to be uncomfortable because I'm rested. I know I can take breaks and I likely take breaks from the doing because I have the mental clarity to see a break is needed. I won't be pushing through to the cost of my own well being. So, the 80/20 rule is a rule that I borrowed from my nutritionist. My nutritionist says that I should eat until I feel 80% full and then leave a 20% to digest, to aid the digestion process. So, my body is going to digest whether I eat 100% full or I'm at 80% full. But giving that 20% space, buffer, allows my body to have more energy to digest and it's going to take less time and I'm going to absorb food better. And I've applied now this 80/20 with everything from my marriage to my prioritizing to my productivity. And so today I want to break it down as the rule that you can follow to being productive. So 80/20 is deciding that yes, We need to take action. We need to prioritize. We need to organize. We definitely need to, create the goal and like get it done. Have something that it shows that we did it. And that's what we're assigning to those elements and 80%. That's your 80%. So 80% of your productivity will look like you are taking action, you're prioritizing, you're organizing. And I want you to assign a 20% straight to the cultivating of the mental clarity. And what are those things? Sleeping, resting, taking breaks, journaling. So if you were to look at what you call today a productive day, what does it look like? Is it an 80-20 distribution or is it 100% distribution amongst probably action taking? Just doing. You're not prioritizing, you're not organizing, you're definitely not cultivating the mental clarity, and you're just doing, 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 doing. I want you to consider that you can continue to do it that way because it feels like that's what you got to do. But even that wanting to keep doing it the way you're doing it, it's a symptom that your mind is in overdraft, just too tired. And it feels that taking a break, there's no space for that. There's no time, and it's only going to stop your momentum. All of those are thought errors. I am not saying you cannot be productive acting that way. You probably have been productive acting that way. So you're like, it works. But how does it feel? How do you like it? Are you constantly overwhelmed and stressed? Are you missing out on happy life moments because you are overwhelmed by all the things and creating productivity? Do you get home from work and you sound more like a sergeant than like a mother who's happy to be home? Because even those moments at home, you ought to be productive. Let's go. The house has to be clean, evidently clean and organized so that it shows the work that I've done. And just consider for a moment what it will look like if suddenly you're dedicating 20% of what you think productivity is to the art of non doing, of resting, of taking it easy, of consulting with yourself, of reflecting, of thinking of all the ways in which you can improve your sleep, maybe darkening your room, going to bed early, silencing the house. Maybe it's the opposite, getting a white sound machine, talking to your doctor about sleeping aids. What would be different if you began to see that a key element of productivity is taking a break, is unplugging, is disconnecting, is resting? I want to leave you with that. Think about that. And I hope this was helpful. I don't want to see 100% of your productivity being taken by action and 0% to cultivating the elements, particularly mental clarity. I know you can do it. I want you to do it. Let's be the kind of people who understand productivity can also be invisible and actually is fueled. It's a side effect of all the things that seem invisible to the eye. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you guys next Monday. Bye for now.